I have hauled 943 bodies out of the dark between stations. That number sits in my head the way some people remember birthdays or old addresses, a fact I did not ask for but cannot forget. 943 flags pulled from drift lanes where cargo insurance runs out and retrieval becomes someone else's problem. My problem specifically. Lucas Stone, verification officer and licensed reclaimer for the Orbital Recovery Authority. I am the someone else. The authority is what happens when governments and corporations need dead people moved, but do not want to pay military rates for it. We are quasi-public, quasi-legitimate, and entirely necessary. Someone has to sweep the grave lanes. Someone has to match serial numbers to manifest logs and deliver what is left to the right morgue or the right funeral barge. That someone has been me for 11 years. My vessel is a Shepherd-class tug, which is a fancy way of saying it is a cargo pod with engines bolted to one end and a cramped operator cabin bolted to the other. The cabin fits one person, one seat, and a control board that should have been replaced a decade ago. Everything is within arm's reach because there is nowhere else to put it. I sleep in a hammock strung across the back wall. I eat meals that come in pouches. I spend 6-day rotations in the deep lanes pulling modules towards station, then 2 days docked while someone else checks my logs and sends me back out. This is rotation 16 of the fiscal year. The board says I have pulled 22 modules so far, pressure suits with bodies still inside, cargo canisters marked as human remains, a handful of full casket modules sealed and stamped by corporate mortuary services. Standard haul. I log each one, scan the identification codes, clamp them to the external lattice that runs along the shepherd's belly, and move on to the next flag. The scanner picks up signals from transponders embedded in anything the authority wants found. I follow the pings. Right now, I am following a single ping 11,000 meters off the primary drift corridor. It is alone, which is unusual but not alarming. Sometimes modules get knocked off course by rubble or thruster malfunction. Sometimes families pay extra for private retrieval, which means I am the only one who gets the flag. I do not ask why people want their dead moved in private. I just move them. The scanner reads the transponder as a Type 4 casket module. Corporate housing, standard configuration, registered under continuance custody. That last part means the body belongs to a company, not a family. Happens more than people like to think. If you die on the job and your contract has the right clauses, your employer can claim your remains to offset training costs, equipment losses, or severance they will not have to pay. Continuance custody resolves debt. I have hauled maybe 150 of them. They are always sealed tighter than family modules, and they always have corporate stamps on the manifests. I do not open them. I just bring them in. I edge the shepherd closer and deploy the grapple arm. The module tumbles slowly in the void, about 2 meters long and 1 meter wide, smooth white polymer with a single status light on the top panel. The light is green, which means the internal seals are intact and the preservation systems ran their full cycle before switching to reserve power. Everything by the book. I snag it with the magnetic clamp and reel it in until it locks against the lattice. The whole process takes 4 minutes. Then I hear the sound. 3 dull impacts against the inside of the module. A pause. 3 more impacts. I stop moving. My hand is still on the grapple release. I stare at the module through the cabin's side viewport. The white polymer shell is maybe 3 meters from my face. The status light stays green. The impacts come again, like the sound a knuckle makes against a door when the person knocking is too tired to make it loud. I pull up the module's data file on my secondary screen. Ident code, VY7138 Ellison, Grant. Registered owner, Vega Industrial Yards. Flagged for continuance custody 17 days ago. Vital metrics recorded at time of sealing. 0 cardiac activity, 0 respiration, 0 neural response. Legal death confirmed by licensed medical officer. Cleared for retrieval and final interment per contract terms. Everything is correct. Everything says the man inside is gone. The knocking comes again. I key open the external monitoring panel. Every module has a small interface on the outer shell that lets me check internal conditions without breaking the seal. Temperature, pressure, humidity, power reserves, and audio. The authority mandates audio monitoring for quality assurance, which is a polite way of saying they want proof we did not damage the cargo in transit. I have used the audio feed maybe a dozen times in 11 years, usually to verify that a module is not leaking atmosphere. I activate it now. Static hisses through my cabin speaker, then fades to near silence. I hear the low background hum of the module's circulation pump winding down its final reserve. I hear the faint creak of polymer contracting in the cold. I hear nothing that should not be there. Then a voice. Please. Thin, hoarse, barely louder than the static. Please don't bag me. My hand freezes on the control board. The voice continues. If anyone can hear this, if anyone is listening, please. I should kill the feed. I should log a malfunction and move the module into the disposal queue. I should do exactly what my training manual says to do when equipment starts acting strange. Quarantine, document, report. Instead, I lean closer to the speaker and say, "This is Reclaimer Stone. Identify yourself." Silence. Long enough that I think I imagined it. Then, Grant Ellison, shuttle mechanic, Vega Industrial Yards. The voice is measured, careful, like someone forcing themselves to stay calm. I'm in a casket. I can't move. I can't. My chest won't work, but I'm awake. I'm still awake. I pull up the vital metrics again. 0 across the board. No heartbeat, no respiration, no brain activity that would register on standard monitoring equipment. The readouts are clear and unambiguous. The man in the module is legally dead, has been for 17 days. What's your date of death? I ask, keeping my voice flat. I don't know. They sedated me for... They said it was a compliance screening. I woke up in here. I've been counting shifts by the temperature fluctuations. 17 cycles, maybe 18. I check the seal integrity again. No breaches, no tampering. The module has been locked since it left Vega's medical processing center. Describe the interior, I say. A pause. When he speaks again, his voice is quieter. Polymer shell. White. The lid is 23 centimeters from my nose. I measured by trying to lift my head. There's a gel pad under my skull, maybe 4 centimeters thick. It's cold. My hands are at my sides. I can't lift them. Sometimes my fingers move. Not often. He is describing a standard configuration. Nothing he could have guessed. Nothing I have said that would give him those details. You're breathing, I say. I can hear you talk. I'm not breathing. My lungs don't pull air. I feel like I'm drowning, but I'm not dying. Something's keeping my head running. Something they put in. There's a throat transducer. They fitted it so I can talk without air. His voice cracks just slightly, then steadies. There are others. In the hold where they kept me before you pulled me out. I heard them sometimes, knocking, trying to get someone's attention. I sit back in my seat. I have hauled 943 bodies. I have never questioned a flatline reading. I have never wondered what the people inside were thinking before the end. I have done my job, filed my manifests, and moved on. How many? I ask. I don't know. 12, maybe? Sounded like 12 different spots. They stopped knocking after a while. I close my eyes and count to 5. Then I open them and start typing the incident report. Anomalous audio contact with Type 4 module. Possible equipment malfunction. Request immediate guidance from compliance. I attach the full scan data, the audio file, and the module's serial number. I send it with priority routing. The response comes back in 47 minutes. I spend that time staring at the module through the viewport, listening to the silence on the audio feed. Grant Ellison does not speak again. I do not prompt him. When the message arrives, it is 3 lines long. Directive VI 7138 Ellison. Grant flagged for immediate disposal due to bioelectrical contamination. Incinerate contents per hazmat protocol. Do not transport to station. Do not open seal. Confirm compliance within 2 hours. Bioelectrical contamination. The words sit wrong. That diagnosis gets used for modules exposed to radiation spikes or catastrophic electrical failures that cook tissue. I have seen contaminated modules. They do not have voices. They do not describe interior dimensions with centimeter precision. I read the directive again. Then I read the signature block. Victor Ingram, Compliance Field Officer, Corporate Mortuary Standards Division. The message came through in under an hour, which means Ingram was already watching the flag, already waiting for someone to call it in. I key the audio feed back on. Mr. Ellison, I need to ask you something. Still here. His voice is steadier now, like he has had time to gather himself. Not going anywhere. When they sedated you for the screening, did they tell you why? Labor action. We slowed shifts after management cut overtime. They flagged me and 16 others for performance liability review. 2 weeks later, they called us in for mandatory biometric updates. That's the last thing I remember before waking up in here. Performance liability. That is contract language. Corporations use it when they want to prove an employee's death was their own fault, which makes the company's insurance obligations disappear. If Vega flagged Ellison for liability review and then moved him into continuance custody, they did it on purpose. They put him in the casket while he could still think. And they sent the disposal order before I even filed the report. I look at the timer. 1 hour and 53 minutes to confirm compliance. If I do what the directive says, I vent the module's atmosphere and trigger the onboard incinerator. The temperature inside spikes to 1100 degrees for 90 seconds. Everything organic turns to ash and vapor. It is clean, fast, and irreversible. I have done it 40 times for contaminated modules. I have never thought twice about it. I think about it now. Mr. Ellison, I say, I'm going to make a call. Stay quiet. I kill the feed and pull up the module's transponder settings. Every casket has a unique identifier tied to its manifest and routing information. If I change the identifier, the module becomes a different piece of cargo in the system. The old serial number gets flagged as lost in transit. Happens more often than the authority likes to admit. Micrometeoroid strikes, navigation errors, clerical mistakes. One more lost module will not raise immediate alarms. It will raise alarms eventually, but eventually gives me time. I recode the transponder to match a retrieval I logged 3 days ago. A family module with clean manifests and standard routing to station morgue intake. I wipe the old identifier from my active log and backdate the new one. Then I file a compliance confirmation for the disposal order, complete with falsified incineration timestamps and thermal readings I pull from an old contamination case. The forgery is good enough to pass an automated audit. A human reviewer will catch it in maybe 6 hours. I will be docked by then. I release the module from quarantine lockdown and slot it back into the standard cargo queue. Then I plot a return burn to Station 17. The trip takes 2 hours. I spend them staring at the module through the viewport, listening to silence, and thinking about the number 943. Wondering how many of them knocked. Wondering how many I heard and did not listen to. The morgue intake bay is at the bottom of Station 17's medical ring, 4 levels below the main concourse. It is where bodies arrive and get sorted. Family claims go to viewing rooms, corporate contracts go to holding freezers, unidentified remains go to long-term storage, while someone tries to match DNA records. The bay itself is a wide rectangular room with 12 loading berths, half of them occupied by gurneys and transport pods waiting for processing. Dr. Lydia Hart is the only person in the bay when I wheel the module through the access corridor. She is standing at a workstation near the far wall, reviewing something on a data tablet. She is 52, grey hair pulled back in a short tail, wearing a morgue physician's standard blue scrubs, and a name badge clipped to her chest pocket. We have known each other for 9 years. She trusts me because I do not lie to her, and I do not waste her time. I am about to test both of those things. "Lucas," she says, glancing up. "You're early. Manifest said you weren't due back until tomorrow." "Cut the rotation short," I say, pushing the module toward an empty berth in the corner. "Need you to look at something." She sets the tablet down and walks over. Her eyes go to the module, then to my face. What am I looking at? Quiet first. I pull the privacy curtain around the berth, a thin plastic divider that blocks sightlines but does nothing for sound. Don't log it, don't scan it in, just look. Lydia's expression does not change, but I see her shoulders tighten slightly. She has been a morgue physician long enough to know when someone is asking her to step outside procedure. She does not ask why. She just nods. I open the external monitoring panel and activate the audio feed. Static fills the small space, then fades. I wait. 10 seconds. 20. Then Grant Ellison's voice comes through. "Is someone there?" Lydia goes very still. Her eyes lock on the monitoring panel, then on the vital readouts displayed on the screen. I watch her process it. Flatline metrics, confirmed death, 17 days in custody. And a voice. "Mr. Ellison," I say into the panel's mic. "This is Lucas Stone. I'm with Dr. Lydia Hart. We're going to open the casket now." Lydia's hand reaches out and grips the edge of the gurney. Her knuckles are pale. She does not look at me. She just says, very quietly, "Open it." I unlatch the seal. The casket lid is designed to lift smoothly on paired hydraulic arms, but I keep the motion slow. The seal breaks with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. The lid rises 30 centimeters, then stops at the safety lock. Inside, Grant Ellison stares up at us. His skin is grey-white, the color of flesh that has not had warm blood in it for days. His eyes are open, pupils dilated and fixed on my face. He is not breathing. His chest does not move, not even the faint rise and fall of unconscious respiration. His lips are cracked and bloodless. His hands rest at his sides, fingers slightly curled. He looks exactly like what the manifest says he is, a dead man. Then his eyes track from my face to Lydia's. The movement is slow, deliberate, undeniable. "Hello," he says. His mouth barely moves. His voice is a dry whisper that comes from somewhere deeper than his throat, like his vocal cords are being forced to work without the support of lungs or diaphragm. Lydia's gaze flicks to his throat. "That's not airflow," she says. "There's a micro-transducer at the larynx. It's making sound for him." She leans closer, her physician's instincts overriding her shock. She reaches for his wrist and presses 2 fingers against the radial artery. "No pulse," she says. Her voice is calm. Skin is cold, no respiratory effort. She lifts one of his eyelids and shines a penlight across his pupil. Markedly dilated, barely reactive. She turns his head gently to one side and examines the base of his skull. Her fingers stop on a small raised area just below the occipital ridge. "There's something here." "That's the thing they put in," Ellison says. "I felt them cut, felt the cold when it went in. Then my heart stopped." Lydia pulls a sterile scalpel from her kit and makes a shallow incision over the raised area. Blood wells up, sluggish brownish color that does not flow so much as seep. It looks more like cold perfusate than true blood. She wipes it away and exposes the object beneath. It is a smooth bead of metal or ceramic, maybe 5 millimeters across, anchored to the base of his skull. A hair-thin line extends from it downward, disappearing into the tissue of his neck. Lydia follows the line with her fingertip, tracing it toward his carotid artery. "It's in the vessel," she says quietly, feeding something into the bloodstream. Perfluorocarbon perfusate, cranial only. It carries oxygen and scavenges CO2. There's also a signal sink masking EG, ECG. The boards will read flat no matter what. The casket's reserve line powers and feeds it. I lean closer. The bead is warm. I can feel the heat radiating off it when I hold my hand a centimeter above his skin. It is not passive, it is active, running, doing something I do not have the training to understand. It keeps the brain alive, Ellison says. His eyes have not left Lydia's face. Pushes oxygenated fluid through. Just enough. Heart and lungs stay off. Everything reads dead. But I'm still here. I've been here for 17 days. Lydia steps back. She turns away from the casket and presses both hands flat against the workstation counter. Her shoulders rise and fall once. Then she straightens, turns back, and looks at me. "Where did you get this?" she asks. "Deep lane retrieval, standard flag, corporate custody." I keep my voice even. Compliance ordered immediate disposal. I didn't do it. She nods slowly. Her eyes go to the monitoring panel, to the flatline readouts that have not changed. "How many of these have you pulled?" "Continuance cases? Maybe 150 over 11 years. "How many did you incinerate?" The question lands like a hammer. I do not answer. Lydia can do the math. She looks back at Ellison, then at me. "You can't keep him here. If compliance flagged him for disposal, they'll send someone to verify. When they find out you didn't comply, I know. They'll take him. They'll finish what they started, and you'll lose your license." Lydia is quiet for a while. She studies my face, then Ellison's, then the device embedded in his skull. She is thinking through the decision the same way I did in the Shepherd, weighing risk against obligation, career against conscience. I do not push her. This has to be her choice. Finally, she reaches for her medical scanner. "I need to map the device, figure out how it interfaces with his vascular system. If we remove it wrong, we could kill him." She pauses. "Kill him for real, I mean." "How long?" "An hour? Maybe 2. I check the time. Compliance will audit the disposal order within 6 hours. If they send someone to verify, they will come to the morgue first, looking for intake records. If they find Ellison here, Lydia and I both disappear into the legal machinery that protects corporate contracts from interference. "Do it fast," I say. Lydia nods and starts her scan. I watch the readouts build on her tablet. Vascular maps, tissue density, the faint thermal signature of the device feeding warmth into dead flesh. She works in silence. Grant Ellison watches us both. His eyes do not close. He does not blink unless I ask him to. He does not move unless some deep fragment of his nervous system fires and gives him half a second of control over a finger or a toe. He is a body that stopped, but did not end. He is every casket I have hauled and never questioned. He is the reason I am standing here instead of filing compliance reports and moving on to the next flag. After 90 minutes, Lydia sets her scanner down and says, "I can't remove it safely here. I'd need an operating suite, vascular bypass, maybe a neurosurgeon on standby. The line goes too deep. If I cut it wrong, he strokes out or the brain shuts down from oxygen deprivation." "So we leave it in," I say. "For now." She looks at Ellison. "Can you tolerate it? The device, I mean. Is it painful?" "Not anymore," he says. "First few days, yes. Felt like something cold spreading through my head. Now it's just there. I feel it running. I feel the liquid moving." Lydia makes a note on her tablet. Then she turns to me. "What's your plan?" "I don't have one." That's not an answer. I look at the casket, at the man inside it, at the device that keeps him suspended between definitions. I think about the directive from Victor Ingram. I think about the 16 others Ellison mentioned. I think about the cargo holds and the knocking sounds that stopped. "I need to know if he's telling the truth," I say, "if there are more. And if there are, then I find them." Lydia nods slowly. "You'll need help. You'll need someone who can document this, officially. Someone who can testify that the device is real, that it works the way he says it works." "That's you." "Yes." She looks at Ellison again, then back at me. "That's me. I feel something shift in my chest. Not relief exactly, but the recognition that I am no longer making this choice alone. Lydia has crossed the line with me. Whatever happens next, we are both on the wrong side of it. Before I can respond, my comm unit vibrates. I pull it from my pocket and check the screen. A new message, priority flagged, sender identification, Victor Ingram. I open it. Retrieval Officer Stone, disposal compliance for VY7138 Ellison. Grant requires in-person verification. I will arrive at Station 17 morgue intake within 3 hours. Prepare documentation and thermal residue samples for review. Acknowledge receipt. 3 hours. I look at Lydia. She reads the message over my shoulder, and her jaw tightens. "We need to move him," she says. "Where?" She thinks for a moment, then says, "There's a cold storage annex 2 levels down. Old morgue space, barely used anymore. I can relocate him there and keep him off the intake logs. But if Ingram searches the whole facility, he will. Then we can't keep him on station." I know she is right. Keeping Ellison here just delays the inevitable. Ingram will find him, seize him, and finish what compliance started. If I want to prove what Ellison is saying, I need to follow the pipeline to its end. I need to go where the bodies go after I hand them off. I need to see a cairn. "There's an outbound funeral barge in 6 hours, I say. Scheduled run to Cairn Sigma 7. If we can get him aboard, you'll be smuggling human remains onto a mortuary vessel." Lydia interrupts. "That's a felony. I've already falsified disposal records and rerouted corporate cargo. I'm past felonies." Lydia closes her eyes and exhales slowly. When she opens them again, she nods. "I'll prep him for transport. You figure out how to get him on that barge without anyone noticing." I start to answer, but Ellison's voice cuts in, thin and determined. "Take me," he says. "If you're going to the cairn, take me. I need to see it. I need to know what happens after." Lydia looks at him, then at me. I see the question in her eyes. I see the same question I am asking myself. What do we owe this man? What do we owe the others he says are out there? "All right," I say. "We take you." Ellison's eyes close for the first time since we opened the casket. When they open again, there is something in them I did not see before. The quiet recognition of someone who has been screaming in the dark and finally heard an answer. I close the casket lid and lock the seals. Lydia starts pulling sedatives and stabilization equipment from her medical supply lockers. I key my comm and start searching for the barge's crew manifest and loading schedule. We have 3 hours before Ingram arrives and 6 hours before the barge departs. Lydia sedates Ellison with a neural suppressant that will not stop the implant, but will keep his body from the involuntary twitches that might draw attention. She wraps him in a thermal blanket marked with biohazard warnings and loads the casket onto a motorized gurney. I help her wheel it through the service corridors to the cold storage annex, a room the size of a small apartment, lined with refrigerated lockers that have not been opened in months. We slide the casket into locker 17, and Lydia locks it with her personal code. 2 hours until Ingram gets here, she says, checking her comm. What are you going to tell him? That I incinerated the module in deep space per his directive. Thermal logs are already in the system. He'll want residue samples. I'll give him samples from an old contamination case, close enough to pass a field scan. Lydia looks at me. You've thought this through. I had time on the trip back. She nods and heads toward the door, then stops. Lucas, if Ingram finds out you falsified those records, it's not just your license. It's prison time. I know. I need to hear you say you understand what you're risking. I meet her eyes. I understand. She does not look convinced, but she does not argue. She leaves to prepare the documentation Ingram will expect to see. I stay in the cold storage annex and pull up my personal terminal, accessing the authorities' case network through my verification credentials. I start with continuance custody flags from the past 2 years. The system returns 398 results. I filter for cases that included expedited cremation orders, the fast-track disposal process that bypasses standard intake procedures. 112 results. I narrow further. Cases where cremation was ordered within 24 hours of retrieval. 47 results. 47 people moved from flag to ash before anyone on station could see them. I pull the first case file. A woman named Tiffany Johnson, contract worker for Helion Manufacturing, flagged for continuance custody after an accident in a fabrication bay that left her with catastrophic injuries. Vital signs flatlined on site. Retrieval within 18 hours. Cremation order issued 6 hours after that. The file includes a single image from the intake scan, a standard documentation photo taken before disposal. I zoom in on the image. The casket lid is smooth white polymer, standard configuration. But near the lower right corner, just visible in the frame, there are 3 shallow parallel lines, scratches. I have seen marks like that before. They are what happens when someone drags their fingernails across a surface and does not have the strength to press hard enough to dig deep. I open the next file. Michael Torres, maintenance technician for Vega Industrial Yards. Same pattern, flatline on site, fast retrieval, immediate cremation. The intake image shows a close-up of the casket's internal padding near the head position. The padding is compressed in an irregular pattern, and there is a small dark stain on the polymer where his mouth would have been. The file notes it as residual biological fluid, consistent with post-mortem purge. I stare at the stain. Post-mortem purge is what happens when gases build up in a decomposing body and force fluids out through the mouth and nose. It does not happen in 17 hours. It does not happen to bodies in climate-controlled caskets. But it does happen when someone is trying to scream, and their body will not let them swallow. I go through 10 more files. Each one has details I never noticed before because I was trained not to look for them. A heel with a braided skin, a hand with fingertips worn raw, a polymer mouth guard with deep impressions from teeth that bit down hard enough to crack the material. The files are marked closed, contents incinerated, no follow-up required. I search for bioelectrical contamination flags. The system returns 73 cases in the past 18 months. I cross-reference them with continuance custody contracts. 68 matches. Bioelectrical contamination is the diagnosis corporate compliance uses when they want a body destroyed quickly and quietly. It is the language that makes disposal sound like public safety instead of what it actually is. I pull up my own case logs and filter for continuance modules I personally hauled and marked for standard intake. 218 over 11 years. I scan through the list, reading names and dates. I remember some of them. The flags I pulled during overnight shifts, the manifests I logged while eating breakfast, the caskets I clamped to my shepherd's lattice and forgot about by the time I docked. I stop on a name, Daniel Soto, cargo supervisor for Meridian Freight. I hauled his module 8 months ago. Flatline on site, standard retrieval, routed to morgue intake per his family's request. Except the file shows an addendum I do not remember reading. Case transferred to corporate compliance for contract review. Disposition pending. I check the follow-up logs. 3 days later, disposition finalized, expedited cremation approved, remains processed. I pull the intake image. The casket is closed in the photo, but the status panel is visible in the upper corner. Someone has written something in the dust on the panel's surface. 4 letters. H-E-L-P. I close my eyes and count to 10. When I open them, the letters are still there. I go back through my logs systematically, checking every continuance case I flagged for standard intake. Out of 218, 41 were rerouted to corporate compliance after I delivered them. 41 people I pulled from the drift and handed off to the morgue, thinking they were going to families or memorial services. 41 people who ended up in the fast-track disposal system instead. I think about Grant Ellison's voice describing the cargo hold. 12 sources of knocking, 12 people trying to be heard before they stop trying. The weight in my chest solidifies into something I cannot name. Not guilt yet. Guilt requires accepting responsibility for a choice. This is the moment before guilt, when you realize the choice was already made, and you were too focused on procedure to see it. My comm vibrates. Lydia's message is 3 words. He's here early. I check the time. Ingram was supposed to arrive in 2 hours. He is here in 90 minutes. I shut down my terminal and erase the search history. Then I head back to the main morgue intake bay. Victor Ingram is standing near the intake desk when I arrive, reviewing something on a data tablet. He is maybe 50, average height, wearing a dark grey suit that looks expensive without being flashy. His hair is short and precisely trimmed. His face is calm, neutral, professional. He looks like every mid-level administrator I have ever dealt with, someone who makes decisions by consulting policy manuals and does not lose sleep over the results. He glances up when I enter and offers a polite nod. "Officer Stone, thank you for making time." "Not a problem." I keep my voice even. "You're early." "I was already in the sector. Thought I'd save us both some waiting." He taps his tablet. "I have your compliance confirmation for Module VY7138 Ellison Grant. Disposal completed via onboard incineration per hazmat protocol. I need to verify the thermal residue samples and review your incineration logs." "I can pull the samples from storage," I say. "Logs are in the system." "I'd like to see the samples first." I walk to the materials locker near the back wall and retrieve a sealed container marked with a case number from a contamination incident I handled 6 months ago. The container holds a small amount of grey-black residue, carbon compounds and trace minerals left after organic matter burns at high temperature. It looks like ash, because it is ash, just not from the right body. I hand the container to Ingram. He unseals it and runs a portable scanner over the contents. The device beeps and displays a chemical breakdown on its small screen. Ingram studies the readout, then nods. "Consistent with complete organic incineration," he says. "Temperature profile matches protocol parameters." He reseals the container and sets it on the desk. "Now the logs." I pull up my terminal and display the falsified incineration record. Ingram leans in and scrolls through the data. Timestamps, thermal curves, power consumption metrics. I watch his eyes move across the screen. He is thorough. He checks the timestamp against my retrieval log, verifies the module's serial number, and cross-references the power consumption against standard incineration cycles. He finds nothing wrong, because I made sure there was nothing wrong to find. "This looks clean," he says finally. He taps a few more keys and appends his verification signature to the file. "Disposal confirmed. Case closed." I should feel relieved. Instead, I feel nothing. Ingram is doing exactly what I did for 11 years. Checking boxes, confirming metrics, moving on to the next case. The system does not need him to be corrupt or cruel. It just needs him to follow procedure. "Can I ask you something?" I say. Ingram looks up from the tablet. "Of course. Bioelectrical contamination. What causes it?" He pauses, just for a half second, then answers smoothly. "Exposure to unshielded electrical systems. Happens most often with industrial accidents or equipment failures near high-voltage sources. The electrical current disrupts cellular integrity at a molecular level, makes the remains unsafe for standard processing." "How often do you see it?" "Not often, maybe 1 in every 200 cases." He tilts his head slightly. "Why do you ask?" "I've been pulling a lot of contamination flags lately, more than usual." Ingram's expression does not change. "The authority updated its detection protocols 8 months ago. More sensitive scanners, broader diagnostic criteria. You're seeing an increase because we're catching cases that would have been missed before." It is a reasonable explanation. It is also a lie. The detection protocols did not change. I would have been notified. What changed was the number of continuance contracts being enforced and the number of people being moved into caskets before anyone could verify they were actually gone. "Makes sense," I say. Ingram nods and closes his tablet. "I appreciate your diligence on this one, Officer Stone. Contaminated remains are a public health risk. Fast disposal protects everyone. Right. He heads toward the exit, then stops and turns back. One more thing. I noticed you cut your rotation short, came back a day early. Everything all right? The question sounds casual. It is not casual. Equipment issue, I say. Grapple arm was acting up. Didn't want to risk a failed retrieval in deep drift. Did you file a maintenance report? This morning. Station tech crew has it on the schedule. Ingram studies my face for a moment longer, then nods. Good. Can't have you out there with faulty equipment. He offers a professional smile. Safe retrievals, officer. You too. He leaves. I wait until the bay doors close behind him, then let out a breath I did not realize I was holding. Lydia emerges from the side office where she was waiting out of sight. He believed you, she says. For now. How long until he figures it out? 6 hours, maybe less. Depends how fast someone audits the case logs and notices the serial number discrepancy. Lydia checks her comm. The funeral barge departs in 4 hours. We need to move. The funeral barge is called the Persephone. It is a mid-sized transport vessel designed to haul casket modules from station morgues to orbital cairns. Basically a cargo hauler with upgraded climate control and a ceremonial designation that makes families feel better about where their dead are going. The Persephone runs scheduled routes between Station 17 and Cairn Sigma 7, a journey that takes a few hours. I access the barge's crew manifest through my authority credentials. 2-person crew, a pilot and a cargo handler. The pilot is a woman named Rachel Okoro, 29, 5 years experience running mortuary routes. The cargo handler is listed as Samuel Brennan, 34, licensed for hazmat and biological transport. Both are contractor employees, not authority staff. That means they care about keeping their jobs but do not care enough to ask hard questions as long as the paperwork is clean. The Persephone is currently docked at the station's lower cargo ring, 3 levels below the morgue bay. Lydia and I move Ellison's casket there using the service freight elevator, a cramped metal box that smells like industrial lubricant and plasteel. We arrive at the cargo ring 45 minutes before departure. The Persephone's loading bay is open. I can see Samuel Brennan inside, securing casket modules to the transport racks with magnetic clamps. He is tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a cargo handler's jumpsuit with the barge company's logo on the shoulder. He works, checking each module's seal integrity before locking it down. I wheel Ellison's casket toward the bay entrance. Brennan glances up and waves us over. More for the run? He asks. Last-minute addition, I say. Family request. They want him on this departure. Brennan checks his manifest on a handheld reader. I don't have a last-minute addition logged. It was approved an hour ago, Lydia says, pulling up a forged authorization form on her tablet. Medical examiner's priority clearance. The family is scheduled to attend the memorial at the cairn. If he doesn't go on this barge, they miss the service. She hands Brennan the tablet. He scans the authorization code, and the reader beeps green, a code I pulled from an old case file and reactivated in the system. Brennan frowns but does not challenge it. All right, he says, but I need to verify the seal integrity before I load it. He runs his scanner over the casket's external panel. The readout shows green across all metrics, temperature stable, pressure sealed, no contamination flags. Brennan nods and motions toward an empty slot on the transport rack. Slot 12, he says. I'll clamp it down. Lydia and I help him maneuver the casket into position. Brennan secures the magnetic locks and logs the module into his manifest. He does not open the casket. He does not check the vital readouts. He just confirms the seal and moves on to the next task. That is how the system works. Everyone does their narrow job. No one looks past their checklist. Brennan finishes the loading sequence and closes the bay doors. We're sealed. Departure in 30 minutes. You two need to clear the dock. Actually, I say. I'm coming with you. Brennan stops. What? Authority oversight. Random audit of mortuary transport protocols. I'll be observing your procedures during the run. I've never had an oversight observer before. New policy. Started last quarter. I pull up another forged authorization on my comm and show him the screen. You can verify with your dispatcher if you want, but it'll delay departure. Brennan looks at the authorization, then at me, then at the chrono on the bulkhead. He is on a schedule. Delays cost his company money and cost him his bonus. He does not want to verify anything. Fine, he says, but you stay out of the cargo bay during transit. Safety regs. Understood. Lydia catches my eye. She cannot come. Her absence from the morgue will be noticed within hours, and Ingram will connect it to the missing continuance case. Someone has to stay behind and maintain the fiction that everything is normal. I'll monitor his status remotely, she says, speaking to Brennan but looking at me. Keep the neural suppressant stable. If there are any issues, comm me immediately. Will do, I say. She hands me a small medical kit, suppressants, monitoring equipment, basic trauma supplies. Then she turns and walks toward the elevator without another word. I watch her go and feel the weight of what I am asking her to do. She is staying behind to take the risk when Ingram figures out what we did. She is giving me time. I board the Persephone and find a seat in the observer's compartment, a narrow alcove near the cockpit with a single acceleration couch and a small monitor that displays cargo bay telemetry. Brennan straps into his station. Rachel Okoro, the pilot, gives me a brief nod through the cockpit window and starts the departure sequence. The Persephone detaches from the docking clamps. The station falls away slowly, replaced by the black expanse of open space. I watch the telemetry monitor as the cargo bay stabilizes. Temperature holding at 2 degrees Celsius, pressure equalized, all casket modules reading green. Then, 40 minutes into the journey, I hear it. A dull, rhythmic sound coming from somewhere in the cargo bay. 3 soft impacts, a pause, 3 more. I glance at the telemetry monitor. All modules still read green, no alerts, no anomalies. But the sound continues, faint, persistent, deliberate. I unbuckle from the couch and move toward the cargo bay access hatch. Brennan is busy in the cockpit, running a systems check. He does not notice me slip through the hatch and into the bay. The cargo bay is cold and dimly lit by amber emergency strips mounted along the ceiling. 23 casket modules are clamped to the transport racks, arranged in 3 rows. I move between them slowly, listening. The knocking comes again, closer now, maybe 2 meters to my left. I stop in front of a module in the second row. The sound is coming from inside. I check the external panel. Vital metrics flatline. Seal integrity confirmed. Registered owner, Hellion Manufacturing. Continuance custody. The module has been flagged for expedited processing at the cairn. I activate the audio monitoring feed. Static fills my earpiece, then fades. I hear the low background hum of the module's circulation system winding down. I hear the faint creak of polymer adjusting to the bay's temperature. Then I hear a voice. Please. Barely a whisper. Please don't leave me here. I freeze. My hand moves to the manual release on the casket lid. I should walk away. I should return to the observer compartment and pretend I heard nothing. That is what procedure tells me to do. That is what keeps the pipeline running. I open the casket. Inside is a woman, maybe 50 years old, eyes open and fixed on my face. Her skin is grey-white, bloodless. Her chest does not move. Her hands rest at her sides, fingers slightly curled. At the base of her skull, I can see the small raised area where the implant sits beneath her skin. Her eyes track my movement as I lean closer. Her mouth opens slightly, lips cracked and dry. "Help me," she says. The words come slowly, forced through a throat that should not be able to form them. "Please help me." I look at her identification tag. Rebecca Solis, Quality Assurance Supervisor, Helion Manufacturing, age 53. Flagged for continuance custody 9 days ago. I think about Grant Ellison. I think about the 12 sources of knocking he described. I think about the cargo holds and the sounds that stopped. I'm going to help you, I say, but I need you to stay quiet. Can you do that? Her eyes blink once. Yes. I close the casket and move to the next module, then the next. I activate the audio feeds one by one, listening for voices, for knocking, for any sign of awareness behind the flatline readings. Out of 23 modules, I find 4. 4 people who should be dead but are not. 4 people trapped in caskets being transported to a cairn where they will be stored in silence until someone decides what to do with them. 4 people the system has already declared gone. I return to Ellison's casket and open the monitoring panel. We're not alone, I say quietly. There are others on this barge. His voice comes through thin. How many? 4, that I found. A long silence. Then, when we get to the cairn, you need to see where they take us. You need to see how many more there are. I will. And Stone? Yes? If you can't get us out, if this doesn't work, you need to make sure people know. You need to make sure someone hears what you heard. I think about Victor Ingram and his polite questions. I think about the case files and the scratched casket lids. I think about the system that functions because everyone does their narrow job and no one asks what happens after. They'll hear, I say. I close the monitoring panel and return to the observer compartment. The Persephone continues toward Cairn Sigma 7. In the cargo bay, 4 people lie in caskets, awake and aware, being delivered to a place where no one will look for them and no one will listen if they scream. I spend the rest of the journey reviewing everything I know about cairns. They are orbital storage facilities built at Lagrange points where gravitational forces balance out and objects stay in stable positions without constant thrust corrections. Most cairns are privately operated under long-term contracts with corporations and station authorities. They provide permanent interment services for people who cannot afford planet-side burial or who worked for companies that claimed their remains through continuance contracts. The official documentation describes them as dignified memorial facilities. The technical specs describe them as automated warehouses. Casket modules arrive, get indexed by robotic handlers, and slotted into storage bays. No human staff required for daily operations. Maintenance crews visit quarterly to check systems and clear any errors. The rest of the time, the cairns run on their own, silent, efficient, and forgotten by everyone except the families who paid for the slots. If Ellison is right, those storage bays do not hold the dead. They hold people who have been legally erased while their minds are still running. The Persephone decelerates as we approach Cairn Sigma 7. Through the cockpit window, I see the facility come into view, a modular structure built from stacked cylindrical pods, each one maybe 20 meters long and 10 meters wide, connected by docking tubes and loading arms. The whole thing rotates slowly to generate artificial gravity on the interior surfaces. It looks industrial and utilitarian, designed for function rather than ceremony. Rachel Okoro brings us in smoothly, matching rotation and docking with the cairn's primary loading port. The clamps engage with a series of dull thuds. Brennan unbuckles and heads to the cargo bay to prep the caskets for offload. I follow him. He glances back but does not tell me to stay in the observer compartment. As far as he knows, I am here to audit procedures. Watching the offload is part of that. The bay doors open. Beyond them is the cairn's interior, a long corridor lined with casket storage bays, each one marked with an alphanumeric designation and a small status light. Green for indexed, amber for pending, red for maintenance required. Most lights are green. The corridor stretches into shadow, row after row of bays disappearing into darkness. Robotic handlers, tracked platforms with articulated arms, roll into the Persephone's cargo bay and begin unloading the casket modules one by one. They work in silence, scanning identification codes and routing each module to its designated storage bay. I watch Rebecca Solis's casket get lifted off the rack and carried down the corridor. Her module disappears around a corner. I do not hear knocking. I do not hear anything. Brennan oversees the offload, checking each module against his manifest as it leaves the barge. The process takes 19 minutes. When the last casket is gone, Brennan logs the completion and prepares to seal the bay. I need to inspect the storage systems, I say. Part of the audit. Brennan frowns. We don't have clearance to access the cairn's interior, just the loading port. My credentials give me access. I pull up another forged authorization. Mortuary facility compliance review. I need to verify proper storage conditions and inventory management. Brennan looks uncertain. He knows this is outside normal protocol. But he also knows I am authority, and he is a contractor who does not want problems. How long will you be? He asks. 30 minutes, maybe less. He checks the chrono. We're scheduled to depart in 45 minutes. If you're not back by then, we leave without you. Understood. I step off the Persephone and onto the cairn. The air is cold enough that I can see my breath in thin clouds. The gravity is light, maybe 0.6 standard, generated by the facility's rotation. I move carefully down the corridor, checking the storage bays as I pass. Each bay holds a single casket module locked into a vertical cradle. The modules are stacked floor to ceiling, accessible by automated lifts. I stop at a bay marked B17 and check the status panel. Module indexed, storage temperature stable, no maintenance flags. I activate the external audio monitor. Static, background hum. Nothing else. I move to the next bay, same result. I check 6 more before I hear it. A faint tapping sound, irregular and weak, coming from somewhere deeper in the facility. I follow the sound down a side corridor and into a shadowed section where the emergency lighting has failed or been turned off. The tapping is louder here, more distinct. I use my comms light to navigate, sweeping the beam across the rows of storage bays until I find the source. Bay D41. The status light is amber, pending processing. I open the external audio monitor. The tapping stops. Then a voice, so quiet I almost miss it. Is someone there? I look at the identification tag. Leo Boyd, systems engineer, Meridian Freight, flagged for continuance custody 32 days ago. I'm here, I say. My name is Lucas Stone. I'm going to get you out. Others, the voice says. There are others in the bays. Please check the others. I move down the row, activating audio monitors as I go. Out of 40 bays in this section, I find 7 with voices. 7 people aware and trapped, stored like inventory in a warehouse nobody visits. I go deeper into the facility, checking more sections. The numbers grow. By the time I have surveyed 3 corridors, I have found 18 people who answer when I speak. 18 voices asking for help, for water, for someone to please just open the lid. I do not have time to open every casket. I do not have equipment to remove the implants safely. All I can do is document, record the bay numbers, the names, the voices, evidence that this is real and systemic. I'm in the 4th corridor when I hear footsteps behind me. I turn and see Victor Ingram standing at the intersection, calm and unhurried, hands in his pockets. "Officer Stone," he says, "I thought I might find you here." Ingram does not move closer. He stays at the intersection, blocking my route back to the Persephone. His expression is the same as it was in the morgue. Calm, professional, faintly disappointed. "You falsified the disposal records," he says. "The thermal signature didn't match the timestamp. Took me 40 minutes to catch it." I do not respond. There is nothing to say that will make this better. Ingram glances down the corridor at the rows of storage bays, then back at me. "How many have you checked?" 18. "And how many were responsive?" The question is clinical, detached. He already knows the answer. "All of them," I say. Ingram nods slowly. He pulls a small tablet from his jacket pocket and taps the screen. Module VY7138 Ellison Grant is currently in Bay C12. Rebecca Solis is in Bay B29. Leo Boyd in D41. I can give you the rest if you'd like. You knew. Of course I knew. He slides the tablet back into his pocket. Continuance custody isn't an accident, Officer Stone. It's a program. It has infrastructure, protocols, legal frameworks. It exists because it solves problems that matter to people with resources. What problems? Debt resolution, contract fulfillment, liability management. Ingram counts them on his fingers like he is listing grocery items. When someone dies owing money or equipment or training costs, those debts don't vanish. Families get crushed trying to pay them off. Continuance transfers the burden from the living to the deceased. The implants keep minimal brain function active long enough to satisfy legal definitions of possession. Once the debt clears, usually months to a year, the implant is deactivated and the person actually dies. Quietly. No family left holding bills they can't pay. They're aware, I say, for years, in caskets. And you think that's a solution? Ingram's expression does not change. I think it's a solution that works within the legal and economic structures we have. Is it perfect? No. Is it better than children losing their homes to pay off their parents' corporate debts? Yes. He takes a step closer. You're looking at this from the perspective of individual suffering. I'm looking at it from the perspective of systemic function. This program processes 8,300 debt cases per year. It keeps families solvent. It keeps companies whole. It keeps the economy moving. Individual discomfort is an acceptable cost when measured against collective stability. There it is, the logic that makes the horror possible. Ingram genuinely believes he is doing the right thing because he has chosen a frame that makes mass suffering look like sound policy. I look past him toward the corridor junction and the path back to the barge. He is alone. No enforcement team, no security backup. He came here to talk, not to arrest me. What happens now? I ask. You surrender Ellison and the others you've identified. They go back into storage. You return to Station 17 and accept a reprimand for procedural violations. Your career takes a hit, but you keep your license. Ingram pauses. Or you keep fighting this and I have you removed from the authority permanently. Legal charges follow. You lose everything you've built, and the program continues exactly as it was. You're offering me a deal. I'm offering you a way to stay in the system. You want to fix this? You can't do it from outside. Work within the structure, file reports, build cases, push for incremental reform. It's slow, but it's how change actually happens. I think about the 18 voices I just heard. I think about Leo Boyd, 32 days in the dark. I think about the scratched casket lids and the heel marks, and the words written in dust that I signed off on without noticing. No, I say. Ingram sighs. Then you're done. I'll have station security waiting when you dock. I'm not going back to the station. Then where exactly do you think you're going? I turn and walk deeper into the facility. Ingram calls after me, but he does not follow. He does not need to. He knows there is nowhere for me to go. The Persephone will leave with or without me. I will be trapped on the cairn until maintenance crews arrive, and by then Ingram will have everything locked down. He is right about all of that. Except he has made one assumption that is wrong. He thinks I am trying to escape. I am not. The cairn's control center is located in the hub section, where all the storage pods connect. It is a small room with 3 workstations and a main console that manages the facility's automated systems, power distribution, thermal regulation, module indexing, and the external loading arms that move caskets between the barge docks and the storage bays. The door is locked, but my authority credentials still work because Ingram has not flagged my access yet. I step inside and close the door behind me. The main console is active, displaying real-time status for all storage sections. I pull up the loading arm controls. The cairn has 6 external arms, articulated cranes that can reach out and grab modules from incoming barges or eject modules for transport back to stations. Right now, all 6 arms are idle, locked in their neutral positions. I override the lock and activate manual control mode. The console displays a warning. Manual control requires dual authorization. Confirm override. I use Ingram's credentials. I pulled them from his tablet verification when he scanned the ash samples at the morgue, a string of characters stored temporarily in my comms buffer. The system accepts the authorization. The loading arms go live. I reverse the arm protocols. Instead of pulling modules into the cairn from incoming barges, the arms will now eject modules out toward the public docking ring, the main commercial hub, where passenger transports, supply freighters, and family memorial shuttles dock. It is the busiest section of orbital space near Station 17, always full of workers and civilians. The console asks me to specify which modules to eject. I select all modules flagged with continuance contracts and pending status lights. The system calculates the selection. 147 modules, 147 people. I confirm the command. Alarms begin immediately, a warbling tone that echoes through the cairn's corridors. The loading arms extend from their housings with a deep mechanical groan. Through the control center's viewport, I watch the first arm swing out and clamp onto a storage bay. It pulls the module free and launches it toward open space. The module tumbles end over end, drifting on a pre-programmed vector into the ring's capture corridor in under 2 hours. If no one intervenes, it will collide with the ring's outer hull and either be caught by emergency tethers or shatter against the ring's micrometeoroid shields. If someone intervenes, if dock workers or station security respond, they will have to bring the modules aboard. They will have to open them to check for survivors. They will have to do it in public, where families and cameras and people who ask questions can see. The second arm activates, then the third. Modules begin ejecting in sequence, filling the space between the cairn and the docking ring with tumbling white caskets. The control room door opens. Ingram stands in the doorway, staring at the viewport. "What have you done?" His voice is tight, controlled, but I hear the edge beneath it. "Made it impossible to ignore," I say. "You're killing them. Some of those modules don't have enough reserve power to last 12 minutes off facility power. Their thermal systems will fail. You're murdering the people you're trying to save." "Maybe." I step away from the console. Or maybe someone saves them. Either way, the world will see what's in those caskets. Ingram moves toward the console, but I am closer. I pull the manual override lockout, a physical switch that disables remote access and requires a maintenance tech with specialized tools to reset. The ejection sequence will run until all flagged modules are clear. Ingram stops. He looks at me, then at the viewport where modules continue to drift outward in a slow procession. "They'll arrest you for this," he says quietly. "You've destroyed property, endangered lives, violated a dozen federal statutes. You'll spend years in prison." "Probably. And for what? You think people will care? You think they'll demand change? They'll read the headlines, shake their heads and move on. That's what people do. The system will adapt, and everything you just did will be meaningless." I think about Grant Ellison's voice in the casket. I think about Rebecca Solis asking for help. I think about the 18 others I found in the dark corridors still waiting. "Maybe," I say again, "but they'll see it first. And I'd rather live knowing I made them look than knowing I kept the lid on." Ingram's jaw tightens. He pulls his comm and starts speaking rapidly to someone on the other end. Station security, probably, or his enforcement team. It does not matter. The modules are already drifting. The alarm is already echoing across every channel in the orbital sector. There is no putting them back. I leave the control room and head back toward the storage sections. Behind me, I hear Ingram shouting into his comm, but his voice fades as I move deeper into the facility. I need to find Ellison. I need to get him and the others out manually before the chaos at the docking ring turns into something worse. Bay C-12. I pull the manual release and the storage cradle descends with a hydraulic hiss. Ellison's casket emerges, seals intact, status light green. I open the external monitoring panel. "Mr. Ellison, it's Stone. I'm getting you out." His voice comes through immediately. "What's happening? The alarms." "Modules are heading toward the public docking ring. Yours is still here. I'm taking you out manually." I disconnect the casket from the cradle's power feed and activate its internal battery reserves. It has 6 hours of backup thermal regulation. Enough time to get him to the docking ring before the system crashes. I repeat the process for Rebecca Solis in Bay B-29 and Leo Boyd in Bay D-41. 3 caskets, each one loaded onto a motorized transport dolly I pull from the maintenance equipment locker. I secure them in a chain and start pushing toward the loading dock where the Persephone is still moored. Brennan is standing at the barge's access hatch, staring at the viewport. Beyond him, I can see the modules drifting through space. Dozens of them now, tumbling slowly toward the docking ring. "What the hell is going on?" he asks. "System malfunction," I say, pushing the first casket onto the Persephone's loading ramp. "Get these secured and prep for emergency departure." "I don't have authorization." "You're a mortuary transport. These are human remains in distress. Your license requires you to render aid." I am making that up, but it sounds official enough that Brennan does not question it. He helps me secure the caskets to the cargo racks, then rushes to the cockpit to start the departure sequence. Through the viewport, I watch the first module reach the docking ring. A maintenance tug swoops in and catches it with a magnetic grapple, hauling it toward one of the ring's emergency airlocks. More tugs launch from the ring's outer bays, scrambling to intercept the incoming modules before they collide with civilian ships or drift into the station's approach corridor. The Persephone detaches from the cairn and burns toward the docking ring. Brennan navigates through the rubble field of drifting caskets, dodging them when necessary, his hands tight on the controls. Rachel Okoro is on the comm, coordinating with station traffic control, her voice calm and clipped despite the chaos building around us. We reach the ring's cargo section and dock at an auxiliary port normally used for small freight transfers. The clamps engage. Brennan starts to unseal the bay doors, but I stop him. "Wait," I say. "Let me check the situation first." I open the access hatch and step onto the docking ring's loading platform. The scene beyond is controlled pandemonium. Modules are being hauled in from every approach vector. Tugs, maintenance craft, even a passenger shuttle pressed into service. Dock workers swarm over the incoming caskets, checking seals and running emergency scans. Station security is trying to establish a perimeter, but there are too many modules arriving too fast and not enough hands to manage them. I see a supervisor waving crews toward a cluster of caskets in the main cargo bay. Workers move in with cutting tools and manual releases, prying open the lids one by one. I watch a lid rise and a man's face appear. Eyes open, tracking movement, mouth working but producing no sound. A medic rushes forward with a scanner, confirms the man is aware, and starts shouting for an intubation kit. Another casket opens to reveal a woman, older, her skin the color of old wax. Her eyes do not move. The medic checks for a pulse, shakes his head and moves on. Dead. Actually dead. A third casket. A man inside, younger, his eyes fixed on the workers above him. One of them reaches down and touches his hand. The man's fingers curl slightly, then go still. The worker jerks back, startled, and calls for a medical team. I return to the Persephone and open Ellison's casket. He is still sedated but conscious, his eyes tracking my movement. "We're at the ring," I say. "I'm taking you to the medical bay." I disconnect his casket from the power feed and transfer him to a gurney. Lydia's sedatives are wearing off. I can see small twitches in his fingers, his jaw working slightly. I wheel him toward the platform and into the cargo bay where the other modules are being processed. A medic intercepts me. What's the status on this one? Aware, I say. Implant at the base of the skull. Continuance case. The medic's face goes pale. She has probably heard the reports by now. The modules with people still conscious inside. The devices keeping them suspended in legal death. She gestures to a trauma team nearby. Get him to surgical, she says. We need to stabilize before we can even think about extraction. They take Ellison from me and wheel him toward a medical transport. I watch him go and feel the first crack in the certainty that kept me moving for the past 6 hours. I do not know if he will survive. I do not know if the surgery to remove the implant will kill him or save him. I just know he is out of the cairn. I go back for Rebecca Solis and Leo Boyd. The process repeats. Handoff to medical teams, transfer to surgical units, uncertainty about outcomes. By the time I finish, the cargo bay is full of opened caskets and bewildered workers trying to process what they are seeing. A station security officer approaches me. She is young, maybe late 20s, wearing the dark blue uniform of the Ring's Enforcement Division. Her name badge reads K. Sullivan. Are you Lucas Stone? She asks. Yes. I need you to come with me. There are questions about how these modules got here. I'm sure there are. She does not cuff me. She does not draw a weapon. She just gestures toward a side corridor and walks beside me as we leave the cargo bay. Behind us, more modules arrive, more caskets open, more voices ask questions that no one has prepared answers for. They hold me in a security office on the Ring's administrative level. The room is small, with a table, 2 chairs, and a single viewport overlooking the cargo bay below. Sullivan sits across from me, taking notes on a data tablet. She has not accused me of anything yet. She is just collecting facts. Walk me through it, she says. From the beginning. I tell her about the retrieval, about Ellison's voice, about the implant. I tell her about the case files and the patterns I found in the authorities' logs. I tell her about Ingram and his offer, and the choice I made in the cairn's control room. Sullivan listens without interrupting. When I finish, she sets her tablet down and looks at me. Do you have any idea how many people you just put at risk? Some, I say. Not all. Modules colliding with civilian traffic. Workers exposed to potential biological hazards. Medical teams trying to treat patients with technology they don't understand. You triggered a system-wide emergency. I know. And you think that was the right call? I look through the viewport. Below, I see a casket being opened by a worker with a plasma cutter. The lid rises slowly. Inside, a man stares up at the lights. His mouth moves, forming words no one can hear yet. A medic leans in, touches his shoulder, and says something I cannot make out from this distance. The man's eyes close, then open again, focused now, aware of where he is and who is helping him. Yes, I say, I think it was the right call. Sullivan follows my gaze to the cargo bay. She watches the scene below for a moment, then returns her attention to her tablet. You're going to be charged. You know that. Probably multiple felonies, property destruction, interference with corporate contracts, reckless endangerment. She taps her screen. Corporate compliance is already filing motions. Victor Ingram is on record demanding your immediate detention. How many modules made it to the Ring? Sullivan checks her data feed. 139 so far. 8 were lost, collision damage, thermal failure, navigation error. Of the ones we've processed, 72 contained individuals with measurable brain activity. 41 are being treated as medical emergencies. 17 are in surgery. 3 died during extraction. 3 dead. I feel the weight of that settle into my chest alongside everything else. 3 people who might have lived if I had done this differently. Grant Ellison? I ask. Surgery. They're trying to remove the implant now. Sullivan glances at her tablet. Surgeon says it's not going well. The device is more invasive than they expected. If they pull it wrong, he strokes out. I close my eyes. When I open them, Sullivan is watching me with an expression I cannot read. For what it's worth, she says quietly. Every module we opened had scratches on the inside, fingernail marks, heel impressions. One had teeth marks on the mouthguard. People were trying to get out. She pauses. We found bay numbers written in the dust on some of the external panels, coordinates, like they were trying to tell us where to find others. There are more, I say. In the cairn, hundreds maybe. Ingram can give you the exact count. Sullivan makes a note. We've placed the cairn network under emergency investigation. Authority oversight teams are being dispatched to all facilities. It'll take weeks to audit everything. Weeks is too long. It's what we have. She sets her tablet aside. I'm not going to lie to you, Stone. This is going to destroy your career. You'll probably serve time. Corporate lawyers are going to tear you apart. But you were right about one thing. People are looking now. They can't ignore this. The door opens. A medical officer enters, middle-aged, wearing surgical scrubs with blood on the sleeves. He looks exhausted. Grant Ellison didn't make it, he says. The implant had integrated with his carotid wall. When we tried to extract it, the vessel tore. Massive cerebral hemorrhage. We worked on him for 7 minutes, but there was nothing we could do. The words land flat and final. I do not respond. There is nothing to say. The medical officer continues. Before he coded, he regained consciousness for about 30 seconds. He asked if it worked. I told him yes. We got him out, people saw. They're checking the others. He said thank you. The officer pauses. Then he died. Sullivan dismisses the officer. We sit in silence. Through the viewport, I watch another casket open, another face appear, another medic lean in to help. The machinery of response is moving now. Slow, imperfect, but moving. Rebecca Solis survived, Sullivan says eventually. Implant removed successfully. She's in recovery, stable. Can I see her? Not yet. Maybe later. Sullivan stands. I need to process your statement officially. Then you'll be transferred to holding pending arraignment. Do you need anything? I shake my head. She leaves. I stay in the chair and watch the cargo bay through the viewport. The scene below continues. Caskets arriving, workers opening them, people emerging into light after days or weeks in darkness. Not all of them survive. Not all of them are coherent. But they are seen. They are counted. They exist in the records now in ways they did not before. Hours pass. Sullivan returns periodically with updates. The number of recovered modules climbs to 147. 81 contained aware individuals. 23 died during or after extraction. Implant complications, system failures, injuries sustained during the chaos. 58 are in medical care, their conditions ranging from stable to critical. The media arrives. Cameras, reporters, live feeds. Station administration tries to establish a press cordon, but information leaks out anyway. By the end of the first day, the story is everywhere. Orbital news networks, corporate bulletins, planetary broadcasts. The images are impossible to ignore. Opened caskets, aware faces, medical teams trying to treat people the law says are already dead. Corporate compliance issues a statement calling the incident a tragic malfunction and promising a full investigation. Families of continuance contract holders file emergency injunctions demanding access to the cairns. Legislators who spent years ignoring the contracts suddenly discover deep concerns about oversight and accountability. The machinery of response grinds forward, slow and loud and insufficient. I am arraigned on the third day. The charges are extensive, 10 felony counts, twice that many misdemeanors. My court-appointed attorney looks young and overwhelmed. The prosecutor looks confident. The judge sets bail at an amount I cannot pay and remands me to station holding pending trial. Lydia visits on the 5th day. She sits across from me in the visiting area, her face tired but composed. Rebecca Solis is talking, she says. Gave a full statement about her experience. The media is running it on every channel. What did she say? The truth. How they sedated her for a contract review. How she woke up unable to move. How she heard others knocking in the cargo hold. How she spent 9 days aware and trapped before you opened her casket. Lydia pauses. She's naming you in every interview. Says you're the reason she's alive. I do not know how to respond to that. Ellison is dead because of choices I made. 3 others died in the chaos. Rebecca survived, but she might not have if the extraction had gone differently. I am not a hero. I am someone who forced an outcome and is now living with the consequences. Ingram is gone. Lydia continues. Corporate compliance suspended him pending internal review. The authority is conducting audits on every reclaimer and verification officer who handled continuance cases. My license is under investigation too. I'm sorry. Don't be. I made my choice. She reaches across the table and touches my hand briefly. The care network is being inspected. They found over 200 more individuals with active implants. Some have been in storage a year or more. Medical teams are working on extraction protocols, but it's slow. They don't want more deaths. The number is too large to process as individual people. It becomes data again, a metric, a problem to solve. But each one is Grant Ellison. Each one is Rebecca Solis. Each one has been awake in the dark, counting time by temperature shifts, and waiting for someone to hear them knock. What happens now? I ask. For you? Trial in 6 months, probably. Your attorney thinks the prosecution will push for maximum sentences. Corporate interests want to make an example. She leans back. For the program? Suspension pending legislative review. New oversight protocols. Mandatory awareness testing before any continuance contract can be enforced. It's not enough, but it's something. It's not enough. I agree. Lydia stands to leave. Lucas, people are talking about this. Not just reading headlines, actually talking, asking questions, demanding answers. You did that. Whatever happens in court, you did that. She leaves. I return to my cell, a small room with a bunk, a desk, and a viewport that shows a slice of the orbital lanes where I used to work. I spend my days watching ships move through the drift, pulling cargo and passengers, and the occasional flagged module. 3 weeks after my arraignment, the station prosecutor contacts my attorney with an offer. Plead guilty to 3 felony counts, accept 10 years suspended sentence with supervised release, and provide full testimony against corporate compliance's administrative chain. In exchange, the remaining charges are dropped and I avoid prison time. The alternative is trial, conviction, and 15 to 20 years in a federal facility. I sign the agreement. The sentencing hearing is brief. The judge reads the charges, accepts my plea, and delivers the sentence. I am released under monitoring restrictions. I cannot leave Station 17, cannot access orbital lanes, cannot work in any capacity related to mortuary services or body retrieval. I am required to check in weekly with a compliance officer and submit to random audits of my activities. I am free in the narrowest technical sense. My career is gone. My credentials are revoked. The only work I can find is dock maintenance, loading cargo containers, running inventory checks, repairing damaged equipment. It is the kind of job people do when they have no better options. I take it. 6 months after the sentencing, I am working a loading dock shift when I see Rebecca Solis. She is standing near the passenger boarding area talking with someone from a victims advocacy group. She sees me and walks over. "Mr. Stone," she says. Her voice is stronger than it was in the casket, but there is still a careful quality to it, like she is consciously managing each word. "I heard you were working here." "Just dock maintenance," I say. "Nothing important." "Everything's important." She looks at the cargo containers I've been sorting. "Can we talk?" We walk to a quiet section of the dock, away from the flow of workers and passengers. Rebecca sits on a cargo crate. I stay standing. "They removed the implant successfully," she says. "I have full motor function back. No cognitive deficits. I'm one of the lucky ones." I'm glad. 23 people died because of what you did. I've read the reports. I know the numbers. I meet her eyes. "Yes." "Do you regret it?" I think about that question carefully. I regret that people died. I regret that I didn't find a cleaner way, but I don't regret forcing them to open the caskets. If I had done nothing, you'd still be in Bay B29. The others would still be there. The system would still be running exactly as Ingram designed it. Rebecca nods slowly. I think about that sometimes. About the choice you made. About what it cost. She pauses. I wanted you to know that it mattered. What you did matters to the people who got out. We're forming a survivors group, 58 of us so far. We're lobbying for permanent changes to continuance contracts. We're testifying in legislative hearings. We're making sure people don't forget. Good. We want you to join us. We need someone who understands the system from the inside. I shake my head. I can't. My release terms prohibit advocacy work related to the case. Then just come to a meeting. Listen, no official participation, just be there. She stands. We meet every third Tuesday. Main concourse, level 6. Think about it. She leaves. I return to the cargo containers and finish my shift. That night, I walk the outer observation ring during station night. Below, on the main concourse, a memorial service is playing on a public screen. Families placing tokens in a ceremonial box, names being read aloud. The machinery of grief performing its function. Near the viewing area, I see a small group gathered around a man who is demonstrating how to operate a manual casket release, the emergency lever that anyone can use if automatic systems fail. The group listens intently, practicing the motion. Grip, twist, pull. I watch them for a while. Then I turn and head back toward the docks. Tomorrow there will be another shift, another set of cargo containers to sort, another day of narrow work with no scope beyond the task immediately in front of me. But 3 times a week, I pass by the section of the dock where funeral barges arrive. I watch them unload their caskets, watch the morgue teams scan the modules and route them to storage or services. Sometimes I see modules flagged with continuance contracts. They are fewer now, and each one gets manually inspected before being accepted for storage. The protocol changed. I keep a small kit in my locker, tools I am not supposed to have under my release terms. A manual release lever, a handheld scanner, basic medical supplies. I tell myself it is just in case I see something wrong, in case someone needs help and the system is too slow to respond, in case I hear knocking and I'm the only one close enough to answer. The pipeline still runs. Bodies still move from drift lanes to morgues to cairns. The machinery keeps turning. But now there are gaps in it. Moments where someone looks twice, checks an extra time, opens a lid when procedure says they should keep it sealed. I stand at the rail overlooking the cargo docks and watch a barge arrive. The name on its hull is Karen, different from the Persephone but doing the same job. Workers begin offloading caskets one by one, scanning codes and verifying seals. One module registers an anomaly, a thermal signature that does not match the manifest. The worker stops, checks the reading again, and calls for a supervisor. Together they open the external monitoring panel and activate the audio feed. I am too far away to hear what they find, but I see them look at each other. I see them move faster. I see the supervisor key her comm and request medical support before opening the casket manually. A lid rises. I cannot see the face inside from this distance, but I see the medics arrive within minutes. I see them lean over the open casket and begin treatment protocols. I see the system respond, imperfectly and slowly, but respond. What changed is the number of people who look when they are supposed to keep moving. The number of people who check when procedure says assume. The number of people who lift the lid when the system says keep it closed. It is not enough. It will never be enough as long as the contracts exist and the implants get installed and people wake up trapped in legal definitions that deny their existence. But it is more than there was before. It is the difference between 943 bodies I never questioned, and one voice I could not ignore. I leave the rail and head back to my shift. Tomorrow I will return to this same spot and watch the same process unfold. I will look for anomalies. I will watch for workers who hesitate before moving on. I will be ready, if needed, to use the tools I am not supposed to have. The machinery keeps turning. But now there are hands in the gears. People who chose to slow it down, to look closer, to answer when someone knocks.